Sure.
Um, okay, so let's go. There are. Just give me a second. I just want to make sure that it's just setting up my meeting, directing me. I am now live on YouTube. Terrific. Okay, so what? So what I wanted to look at is really there's such an interesting thing that keeps coming up. There are a number of themes that come up in the Megillah, and so one of the themes that we all know about is clothing. Okay, that's clear. But there's another theme that keeps popping up in different places, and that is food. And not only food, just about a specific type of food. And it's kind of struck me like, where's that coming from? So what I wanted to do is just use this forum as a discussion around that. Okay, and now where the place that it starts, this whole story with everything. I'm not going to go where the actual food part starts, but what struck me the most surprisingly about the Megillah, and it just, I don't know why, but it keeps on. It bothers me, and I think I figured out why it bothers me. So let's go. So what happens is we know this whole story. We know the story of Esther. I don't have to tell you that. That's the easy part of the story. But what happens is that when Haman comes along and does and puts this decree together, the next paragraph, the next chapter of the Megillat Esther says, after these things, Mordechai heard what had happened. He makes this terrible cry. He dresses in sackcloth. He puts on ashes on his head, and he goes into like a period of mourning. And in that period of mourning, Esther hears about the fact that he's like down or something's going on. She's not exactly sure what's going on. So she sends this person called Hatach. Hatach, Vatikra Esther laHatach, says the Megillah. She called Hatach and she told to Hatach to go and find out what is going on with Mordechai. Okay? So the Gemara says, Amar Rav, in the name of Rav, Hatach ze Daniel. Hatach is Daniel. So who's Daniel? Daniel is one of the prophets, right? Daniel is a book. There's a book in Tanakh written by Daniel, right? So the Rav wants to say that this person Hatach, who is now going to engage directly with Mordechai, is this man called Daniel, this prophet Daniel. So if that's the case, why is he called Hatach? So the Gemara says, "V'lama nikra shmo Hatach shechatachu migdulato," because Daniel, if you remember, during the was one of the great advisors of Belshazzar. Belshazzar is the one who precedes Achashverosh. Well, he's the one who precedes Achashverosh, because Achashverosh, then it's Dariavesh the first, and then it's Achashverosh. So he's the one who precedes. But when he precedes him, he was an unbelievably powerful person in the court of Belshazzar. So now what's happened to him? Why does he suddenly go down? So why does he now suddenly find himself as a servant of Esther in the harem of the king, having been the great advisor to the king? So we're not exactly sure why, but what we do find out is that he's been moved from being the advisor to the king to being like a servant in the harem. Okay, exactly why? It seems to be it's a political move, because he was so powerful in the court of Belshazzar that they were worried that he'd have deep impact in the court of Achashverosh. Okay, so that's one way of understanding. And Shmuel says, no, that's not the reason why it's called Chatach. It's called Chatach because it's called Divrei Malchut Nechtachin al Piv. Because whatever he was called Chatach means to cut. That whatever happened in the kingdom happened because of him. He defined things. He was such a powerful advisor, such a brilliant man. Okay, so this is Daniel. Ross, how's it? Just to catch you up, I said to Mish that what's fascinated me about the Megillah this year is that I found there's a lot of reference to food. And I'm trying to understand where the reference comes to, but the beginning point where I'd like to start with that is this reference where Hatach, who is one of the kind of like the maid servants in the in the harem of the king is sent by Esther to speak to Mordechai. And the Gemara tells us, as Rashi tells us as well, that Hatach is Daniel, the prophet Daniel. Okay, so the question is, how does the prophet of Daniel find himself with such a central point in the Megillah, and why is it so important that it has to be Daniel? It could be anybody. I mean, why does it have to be the most important person in Jewish history at that point in time? Why does he the one who has to go and speak to Mordechai? Why can't it be anybody? There's something clearly about a relationship that Hatach has with Esther in the space that she is in that we need to try and understand. Okay? So let's look at that and see where that comes from. So it's going to be a little bit of a journey because it is. Okay? So the Gemara says the following. The Megillah tells us the story of what happened at this party. There was an incredible party, and it was an unbelievable opulence and wealth and excess at this party. And straight after the party, after Esther has been chosen to be the queen instead of Vashti, because remember, Haman advised Achashverosh to kill Vashti. Straight after Esther comes as being this now the new queen sitting there. We find an amazing thing, and that is that Mordechai saves the king's life. Mordechai saves the king's life, and that's important. But even though Mordechai, at the end of the day, Haman is the one who's made into the second in command. And the reason, and once he's made into the second in command, what it really means now is that Haman is going to be able to determine the future of Persia and Media, this enormous not kingdom, it's an empire. He's going to be able to determine that empire. And if that's the case, what happens now, what we have to try and understand, is that if he's determining the future, why is it not Mordechai that's determining the future? Surely Mordechai should be the one who's going to determine the future of this empire, since he's the one who saved the king's life. So the Gemara asked that question, because the Gemara says, how come Haman comes into place, and because he's in place now, he's able to put these terrible decrees on the Jewish people. And that's why the Gemara says, why does everybody now have to be destroyed in that period of time? So the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says to his Talmidim, I'll tell you why. He says, you know why? Because when there was this massive seudah, this massive meal, they benefited from this massive meal. So then the Talmidim say to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, if that's the case, then just kill the people in Shushan, because those are the only people that were the ones that actually ate from the meal that Achashverosh had set up. So comes along the Gemara and says, no, they said to him, no, you know why? Because during the time of Nebuchadnezzar, the Jewish people bowed down to a tzelem, to an idol that he had set up. It's not the idol of Haman that some people think it is. It's the idol that Nebuchadnezzar, 3 generations before, had set up. That's the idol that they bow down to. And because they bow down to that idol, so therefore there is havoc that goes on, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not very happy. And he says, okay, if that's the case, you're now going to be subject to what we call clear meaning the destruction of the Jewish people. So why is it? So what really kind of pushed everything over the edge was the fact that they ate at the party. Now, if we look carefully at the eating at the party, it seems to be the way Chazal expressed it, is that in actual fact there was kosher food, there was everything that you could have wanted at this party. It didn't need to be a problem for the Jewish people that they shouldn't be able to eat there. It was, according to many, it was kosher, it was everything they wanted. But there's something about the food aspect of it. So what was the food aspect of it? So the way the Gemara explains it is that the whole party was structured, and this brings the Kli Yakar. The whole party was structured by Achashverosh out of a fear that he had. What was his fear? the way the Gemara tells us is that Achashverosh wore the clothing of the Kohen Gadol, and he used the kalim, he used the vessels of the Beit HaMikdash. And now, if he did those things, if he did these things, so then what happens is that is a terrible, terrible Aveira. And so therefore the Kli Yakar explains that what Achashverosh did is that he created this party to be in a format that was, in inverted commas, Jewish style. You know, like in New York, you go to these kosher style places, right? So the party of Achashverosh was Jewish style. What does that mean? And the Jewish style, the way it's presented, is one thing specific. And that specific thing is that there was more eating than there was drinking. Okay, which is quite fascinating in and of itself. That's how the Gemara wants to say the Jewish style presents itself as is more eating than drinking. Okay, if that's the case, it became okay for the Jews to be there at this place that was so depraved and so opulent and so against the very essence of the Jewish values at that point in time, that it was the wrong place for them to be at. Now, having said that, we now set up this whole idea of the fact that the way people eat is going to be something fundamental within the Megillah. And that's what I really wanted to point out. Okay, so where we find this next thing manifesting itself is the most interesting part. So we know that Esther is chosen by King Achashverosh to be her queen, to be his queen, right? But before that, if you'll remember, it says that that all these hundreds and thousands of young women were found from all over the kingdom to come in and to be, and they were then going to be decided upon by the king which one is the one that he wanted to be the queen. And one of those women was Esther, and she's taken in. And what's interesting is that if she's going to be there for a long time, waiting for her turn to come, she's going to have to eat, right? So the question is, what did Esther eat? Because if we can understand what Esther eats, we're going to understand a little bit more of how this whole thing sorts itself out. So look what happens. The Megillah says, "V'teitava na'ara ba'inav, v'tistah chesed lefanav." That this young girl who is Esther, she found favor in the eyes of the man who was managing the harem. Okay, and he was very careful to make sure that she had everything she needed. To make sure she had everything, whatever it was, her makeup, whatever else she needed. And then the Megillah tells us, she had seven na'arot, 7 young maidens. And those 7 young maidens were that she had as the people that looked after her directly. And that's very important. Why is it very important? Because why does she need to have these 7 maidens looking after her more than anybody else has got stuff? Seems to be a very special thing that she has. That were appropriate for him to give to her. So the Mefarshim explains, what does it mean that they were appropriate to give to her? Is that everybody got, but she got special. Who did she get? Miraculously, she, according to one opinion, she got 7 Jewish maidens to look after her. Or the other opinion was that she said she doesn't want the same maiden every day, and the reason why she got 7 is she got 7 for every single day. Why does she want 7 for every single day? Because she didn't want them to notice something different. So she would have Leora and this one and this one and this one, and then her Shabbos day person was the same person to be there for every single Shabbos day, and so therefore she could behave on Shabbos as she needed to behave, and there would be no difference in, they wouldn't notice any difference in her behavior. Okay, so that's according to one. But then it says that Vayeshaneh says that they changed all of these things, and the Gemara is trying to understand what are the changes that are happening for Esther. And on that, the Gemara tells us fascinating. The Gemara tells us something which is really important for us to remember. The Gemara says that what does it mean? Melamed shehaya moneh bahem shivat yemei Shabbat. The number one is that she had the seven over. Rav says shehe'echila ma'achal Yehudi, that these women fed her ma'achal Yehudi, Jewish food. What is ma'achal Yehudi? So Rashi says ma'achal Yehudi is food that was appropriately kosher for her. And then the Gemara says Shmuel, she didn't eat ma'achal Yehudi, she actually ate chaza because she didn't want to be different. And she was given the heter, the allowance to eat chazer ba Mordechai. And finally, Rabbi Yochanan says, no, none of that. It's not that she ate some like Jewish style foods that were kosher. It's not that she ate chaza. It's not that she had all different types of women that were made that every day, but rather she decided and she put out there that she ate only zer onim. Zer onim from the word zera, which means seeds. So she put out there that she was actually a vegetarian. Okay. And since she was a vegetarian, all she would eat were seeds, and she would get her proteins and everything, whatever you needed from the seeds. And then the Gemara says, how do I know that? He says, you know how I know that? I know that from a pasuk in the prophet Daniel, which says, Vayhi ameltzar nosei et pat pagam v'noten lahem zeronim. That the waiter, when he was serving Daniel, what he would bring to Daniel was always what? Zeronim. He would bring him seeds. And once we understand that, we begin to understand that there's a whole system happening within this Megillah. That it's not that Esther just made a decision, oh, you know what, I better eat these seeds, but rather she's got a Masorah, she's got a tradition from other people who were powerful people in the palace of the king, that it's okay to say that you are, in this case, call it a vegetarian, and not eat their food, because can you imagine how it must have been that in the palace of the king, you're not eating the lavish meals that be so open, if that's the right word, would be so open to allow Esther to go into the lion's den. He didn't have somebody to look after her. And so therefore the history of this movement of Esther into the palace of the king is very much around a tradition of the fact that you have this man called Daniel, who is the one consistent, safe person for this young maiden Esther, for her to do what she needs to be able to do in the palace. Okay, now, having said that, let's try and understand a little bit deeper what is going on with this Chatach person, this Daniel person. So there, the Maharal says the following: that why does it not specifically tell us that his name is Daniel? So he says, Lamar al Rishat Achashverosh. He says it's coming to tell us about the evil person that Achashverosh was. That what did he do? Shemagadol at Haman Rasha. He makes Haman into this great person, and Haman is an evil person. Haman is the one who advised to get rid of Vashti, which is fascinating. The king misses Vashti terribly. He misses her power. He misses her influence. But still, he elevates Haman. But he takes Daniel, the tzaddik, and he pushes him aside. And he says, and that's the case. That's the way the Rishonim works. That's the way evil people work, is that they find people that have a similar value system, and they push away all those who can come against it. And I think in many ways, like this is Sorry, we seem to have got cut off. Sorry. So, I'm not sure where you got up to, Mitch. Where did I leave you off?
About a minute back.
Did we speak about the destruction of did I speak about Hamas? Did you hear about that?
Missed that.
Yeah. Is that the choice to choose when a person has a certain value system. So that we choose Hamas as that people choose to side with who? You either side with the Jewish people or you side with Hamas. You side with the Jewish people, or you side with the enemies of the Jewish people. There's no in between actually, right? And when you do that, then you make definitive things, and that's what happens with Achashverosh. Achashverosh makes a definitive ally out of Haman, and it's only at the end when he sees that Haman is actually threatening not him. Haman at no point in time threatens Achashverosh, but what he does threaten is he threatens his future, and that's important. He threatens the future of Achashverosh because he threatens his queen. When his queen says to him that he has this man who's going to take away from my people and destroy me and all my relatives, etc., etc., etc. What he hears is he's threatening my future, and he's very angry about that. And he goes out, and then when he comes back in, he sees that he's not only threatening the future. The way he sees the picture is that he's trying to either rape or just have some type of relations of some sort with Esther. And in doing that, what he's doing is going to once again threaten the future of Achashverosh, because if that becomes a pregnancy, then what's going to happen is that the heir is not going to be his heir, it's going to be the Haman. And so that's why he gets so when the future of the people is threatened, he changes his loyalties. And he changes his loyalties in such a simple, easy way, right? Where he immediately takes Mordechai, who was the baddie, and he makes him into the goodie. And he takes Haman, who was the goodie, and he makes him into the baddie. Because why? Because when there's an existential threat, then we really look carefully and we're able to switch what we have to do, and we're not so worried about other things. And that's what happens with this man. So therefore, that's what Shmuel says. Shmuel says no, it can't be. So that was Rav. Rav said that he completely destroyed the the man that was Daniel. But Shmuel says he didn't do that. Shmuel says, on the other hand, what he actually did is that he left him. He left him as Daniel, but he moved him out of his court. He left him as this powerful man, but he put him into a place where any time that he had something to say, it wouldn't really be so well heard by people, um, or or he wouldn't have the same amount of information that he would have had if he was in the court of the king. And so therefore, this man called Khatas is this man who is no longer really able to have such amazing amount of impact. And then there's the last time that food is really mentioned in the Megillah. Now, where is that? That is in the thing where Esther says to Achashverosh, when Achashverosh says, "Oh, you're so lovely, I love you so much, I'll give you anything you want." She says, "All I want is for Haman and you, the king, and Haman to come to a mishter, to come to a party, to come to a place where where the two of you we can all celebrate together." And the Gemara asks the question. The Gemara says, "So Mara Ata Esther Shazimna Haman." Why did she invite Haman? Why would she invite Haman into into this meal? And Rabbi Yehuda says, you know why? Today, Shlo Yakiru Ba Shehu Yehudit. Says, you know why? Because she um, didn't want him to think that she was a Jewess. Because why would a Jewess invite the enemy into a meal together with them? A meal, and remember, a meal is such a powerful thing. Why would a Jewess invite Haman the Rasha, this evil, terrible person who wants to kill the Jews, into a meal? And the reason she does it is in order for him to drop his guard. And so, therefore, we see a very interesting theme that runs through the whole Megillah. The beginning of the Megillah is the way that the Jews, Am Yisrael, drop their guard and go into a place which is really inappropriate for them, and they eat from food which is really inappropriate for them to be eating. And why do they do that? Because it was made kosher style. That's the way the Gemara wants to present it. But what they did is they ate of that, and because they ate of that, they set themselves up for complete and utter destruction. The utter destruction is going to be the utter destruction is going to happen. However, Hatach, who is this man called Daniel, who is the man that taught Esther how to eat in her captivity, is the man that changes everything because he's the one who engages directly with Mordechai. And not only that, but the other place where there's a meal is the meal between Esther and Haman. And it's at this meal of Esther and Haman where we find Haman's downfall. So food on the one hand is the thing that is the cause of the downfall of the Jewish people, and a meal, on the other hand, is ultimately the cause of the vanquishing of the Jewish people over the evil. And I just thought it was just, for me, it was just fascinating to see how these things play such an important and fundamental role. And that's why one of the mitzvahs of Purim is to have a seudah, is to have a meal. And another one of the mitzvahs of the Purim is to give mishloach manot, to send a meal to your friend, because food is such a fundamental part of the very essence of the story of Purim. So I thought that would be just something that would enhance and
Rav Jonny, you there? Mitch, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, I caught the end. You said.
So it seems to have been a bit of a bad connection on my side. I don't know why. Apologize.
That's okay. I got it. It's really
Very
nice to have
interesting.
a meaningful, behind the meal parts of Purim. It's nice to have to tie it to something in the Megillah.
Good. Good. I'm glad. I just think it was just something that was in my head, and I just thought I would share it with you because it's. I think there's a lot more on it, but it's just so. It becomes so important to take the Megillah in a way that it's not the children's story that we've always kind of like been taught, but it's much, much deeper and has much more significance. And every single word is so fundamentally important. That's kind of what I was trying to highlight.
I mean, it's a very interesting theme, Rav Jonny. I guess the question is why is the focus on food? It's clear the focus is there. It's clear the theme is there. It's very, very interesting. But I mean, if you turn that into a kind of a little marshal, like, oh, guys, just remember to keep kosher and sort of, that would, I think there's more to it, right?
No, I think there's much more to it. I don't think it's about that. I think food is culture. I think food is a way in which you define.
We lost you again, Rav Jonny.
Food also defines your position in the space where you are. So you're the perfect example because you've created a specific food development space because there's a need for that, because otherwise people can't come there. So food, in a way, opens up enormous opportunities for people who are otherwise restricted. And I think that's part of our experience in Galut. Our experience in exile is that we are not always able to go where we want to. We're restricted. And Chashverosh unrestricts it by bringing in this massive meal where everybody can go. But it's not necessarily the right thing to do, because in doing so, they kind of, in a way, fall foul of the very essence of their values. So it's not only, and there's a Ramban on this. The Ramban speaks about the idea of Kadoshim Tiyu, that you got to be holy. And the Ramban explains that you got to be careful. You got to be kadosh not only in the things that you're not allowed to do, but even in the things that you are allowed to do. There's a requirement for a person to to be careful how much they eat, for example. That you can eat, you can be eating the right thing, but you're eating too much of it, and then you become what we call a manuvel b'reshut Torah. It's disgusting. Looks like we have.
Got your back.
Guys, oh, there we go. Back. I don't know why it keeps cutting out. It's terrible. It's terrible. I'm sorry.
Okay. Rav Jonny, I think we have to join the 9:15 share. So I'm saying the next share.
9:15 share.
I'm just joking. Anyway, I'm here with Dreamy.
Dreamy, I'm sorry I didn't get to call you. I've actually been thinking quite a lot about it, and let's chat tomorrow. If you give me a call like 10 o'clock my time, if that's good for you, then we can
10, 12. Let me take a look at my diary, but if they I'll confirm with you on WhatsApp once I take a look. Okay?
Super. Brilliant. Okay, lekker.
Thanks, Rav Jonny. And I don't know who produced it, but there was a beautiful poster for today's.
That was me. That was me.
Okay, it's very impressive.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Let's get some more people in. Let's hopefully we can.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that Dylan will join. Hopefully,
I'll get him in. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, he said he was busy tonight. Otherwise, he definitely would have joined.
Let's just try to build it like 1 or 2 people per week.
Yeah.
Let's just like really give that a go.
Yeah.
All right,
Irina
everybody.
Would do that. He normally comes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Wishing everybody Shabbat Shalom.
You too. God bless, guys.